Blog Talk Radio.
What's good? Welcome to the Mike and Ant. I'm Ant. My co-host Mike is not here today, but we are coming to you worldwide on Blog Talk Radio, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And on today's show, we're going to break down the NBA playoffs and give you my postseason predictions all the way up into the NBA. Well, not all the way up to the NBA. They'll do it round by round. So I'm going to break down all the first round. I'll break down all 8 matchups, break down who I think is going to win and who's going to advance. So as always, you can chat with me on Blog Talk Radio, or you can follow me on Twitter at ExpectedAnt, and you can also find me on Tumblr at MadSexy, and I'm also on Facebook as well under Anthony Thomas. I think my Facebook link is linked on my Spreaker page. So if you go on my Spreaker page, you can find my Facebook link on my profile page. So let's jump into the nitty-gritty here as we're going to discuss the 2015 NBA playoffs. As the playoffs kick off this weekend, I'm excited. I know all you guys are excited too. It's been a long 82-game season. It's been a weird 82-game season as the teams that are normally in the playoffs are not in the playoffs. Teams that you wouldn't think would be good are actually good. And there's a chance we might actually have a finals matchup that, back in October when the season started, you didn't even think was going to happen. So, a little background of the 2015 NBA playoffs. As the playoffs kick off this weekend, for the first time since 2006, all 5 teams from one division made the playoffs. Last time that happened was as all 5 members from the Southwest Division made the playoffs in the Western Conference. The last time that happened was in 2006 when all 5 teams from the Central Division made the playoffs in the East. So the San Antonio Spurs are making the playoffs for the 18th consecutive year, which is the current longest streak in the NBA right now. The second longest streak in the NBA right now, which is actually kind of surprising seeing how bad they were just 10 years ago, is the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are in the playoffs for the 8th consecutive season. They're the top seed in the East. The Golden State Warriors are making the playoffs for the 3rd consecutive year. They're the top seed in the West. And also, you have teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers that are making the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. The last time LeBron was there. And also, you have the Miami Heat. They did not make the playoffs. So the Heat are the first team since the 2005 Los Angeles Lakers to miss the playoffs a year after going to the NBA Finals. As the Lakers went to the Finals in 2004, they lost to the Pistons in 2005. That's the year they traded Shaq to Miami. They missed the playoffs because Kobe couldn't get it done by himself. Also, 3 of the 4 conference finalists from last year also did not make it to the playoffs. The Miami Heat, as we talked about, not in the playoffs for the first time since 2007. First time since 2008. Miami did not make the playoffs. Oklahoma City missed the playoffs for the first time since 2009. And the Indiana Pacers not making the playoffs for the first time since 2010. And the Thunder and the Pacers all missed the playoffs due to head-to-head due to tiebreakers, which got the Pelicans and the Nets in over there. And also, the Milwaukee Bucks making the playoffs for the first time since 13, as they are the first team, I think, in NBA history to go from the worst team in the NBA last year to making the playoffs the following season. And also the Boston Celtics overachieved, especially after the All-Star break, as they made the playoffs also for the first time in 2 years. So we'll start things off in the Eastern Conference. So here's the 8 teams that are in the East. You have the Atlanta Hawks, number 1. They have home court advantage. Cleveland, number 2. Chicago, number 3. Toronto, number 4. Washington, number 5. Milwaukee, number 6. Boston, number 7. Brooklyn, number 8. And in the West, you have Golden State, number 1. They have home court advantage throughout the NBA. Houston, number 2. LA, number 3. Portland, number 4. Memphis, number 5. San Antonio, number 6. Dallas, number 7. New Orleans, number 8. And it's weird because only 3 teams in the East can actually make the playoffs in the West. That's just how bad the East is. This year the East is just. Honestly, I don't even understand why the conferences are like that. But it just tells you how bad the Eastern Conference is, that only 3 teams from the East can actually make the playoffs if they're in the West. All right, so we'll start off. We'll break down the Eastern Conference. We'll start things off discussing the 1-8 matchup in the East. The number 1 seed Atlanta Hawks taking on the number 8 seed Brooklyn Nets. Atlanta, pretty much, this is the first ever postseason meeting between the Hawks and the Nets. They've never met each other in the playoffs before. This will be the first time. Atlanta dominated the regular season series, sweeping Brooklyn 4-0. They blew them out every time except for the last meeting, actually just last week, when Atlanta beat Brooklyn by 3. But each game they beat Brooklyn by at least 11 points or more. So to me, I can see this. To me, I think it's gonna be a sweep. Even though I'll give Brooklyn the benefit of the doubt, I think Brooklyn could maybe win 1 game at home. So worst case scenario is it'll be a sweep. Best case scenario, Brooklyn gets at least 1 game at home and they win in 5. Atlanta's a tricky team because Atlanta, unlike most teams in the playoffs and most teams that win 60 games, have one go-to star player that you can say, okay, he's going to take over a game this. But Atlanta, they're the true definition of a team. They play together as a team. They don't have one star player. Unless you're just a huge basketball fan or you're a huge Atlanta Hawks fan, it's really hard to even name one player on this team. But somehow they get it done. And they move the ball really well. Great ball movement from the Atlanta Hawks offense. They're a very unselfish team. I don't think they had a single player on their team average 20 points all season. So, but whatever happens is working out for them. So I got Atlanta winning this series, and I think at least go 5 games. So that's how I think it'll be a sweep, but it'll be nice. I give Brooklyn at least 1 win at home, and I think Atlanta wins this game 5. All right, next matchup with the 2-7 matchup in the East. You have the 2 seed Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the number 7 seed Boston Celtics. And like I mentioned, Boston, they're the surprise team in the NBA. They went 40-42 to finish up the end of the season. They finished the season on a 6-game winning streak. They actually had the second best record in the Eastern Conference since the All-Star break. Only Cleveland, ironically, had a better record than them. Both teams split the regular season series 2-2. Cleveland won the first game. Boston won the last 2 games, even though you pretty much threw the regular season matches at the window, only because when Boston won the first game in November, the players on the Cavaliers and the players that were on the Celtics then are no longer on the team. Rajon Rondo's gone. Jeff Green is gone on Boston. Obviously, Cleveland had a totally different roster. Dion Waiters is gone. Timothy Mozgov wasn't there at the time. So it's just 2 completely different teams than what we saw in November when Cleveland won. And, of course, in March, when Cleveland beat them again, Boston wasn't the same team either. Boston has changed significantly since March as well. In the last two meetings, which just happened over the last 5 days, uh, Kyrie Irving didn't play the first game, and then LeBron and Kevin Love didn't play the second game. But Boston won both games. So this is the sixth meeting between the Celtics and the Cavaliers in the playoffs. Out of the previous 5 times these two teams played, Boston's 4-1 all time against Cleveland. As a matter of fact, the last time these two teams met in the playoffs was in 2010. They met in the Eastern Conference semifinals in 2010. Boston won that series 4-2. And just like with the Atlanta Brooklyn series, I think this series will be a 5-game series. I think Boston's good enough to win at home. I don't think Boston has the talent to compete with Cleveland at this point in time. I still think Boston. I think it's good enough that they made the playoffs, and I hope this is what the Sixers do in the future, is be as good as Boston and at least compete. But but I just think right now Boston's too young to compete with Cleveland at this level, and I think still Boston still maybe 4 or 5 years away from competing in the Eastern Conference. Even though the Eastern Conference is so bad, Boston could easily compete in the East next year. But I think right now Boston doesn't have the talent to compete with Cleveland. And again, I'll give Boston the benefit of the doubt, just like I did with Atlanta and Brooklyn. And I think Boston is good enough to win at least one game at the Boston Garden. And I think Cleveland will win this series in 5 games. All right, next we have the 3-6 matchup in the Eastern Conference. The number 3 seed Chicago Bulls versus the number 6 seed Milwaukee Bucks. And Chicago, they won the regular season series 3-1. They beat Milwaukee the first 3 times, and they beat them in November, January, and February. And then Milwaukee won the last matchup in April 1st. This is the 4th playoff meeting between these two teams. Out of the first 3 meetings, Milwaukee won 2 out of the first 3 previous times that they played in the playoffs. The last time these two teams met in the playoffs was actually in 1990. In the first round, Chicago won the series 3-1. And again, just like with Boston, Milwaukee, as I mentioned earlier, they went from being the worst team in the NBA last year to making the playoffs, the 6th seed in the East. And just like with Boston, I think Cleveland at this point in time, not Cleveland, but Milwaukee, excuse me. I think Milwaukee at this point in time is not ready. They're not ready. They're still a young team, and I don't think they're ready for this moment. Now Chicago, they've been battling with injuries all year. They're getting healthy at the right time. They got Derrick Rose back. Joakim Noah, who missed the last 2 games of the season, he's expected to be back. They're getting Jimmy Butler back. So hopefully, if Chicago can stay healthy here, I think they can make a deep run in the playoffs, especially in the East. Because I still think that talent-wise, if they're healthy, I think they could be better than Cleveland. But at this point in time, I don't think Milwaukee is good enough to compete with Chicago in the playoffs. So, again, I see this series going just the way it was in the regular season. I can see Milwaukee winning at least 1 game, and that's it. And so just like with Cleveland and Boston, and just like with Atlanta and Brooklyn, I think Chicago will win this series in 5 games. I think it'll be a 5-game series. I think Milwaukee is good enough to win at least 1 at home, and that's it. No, but the key for Chicago is health. If they can stay healthy, and that's the one thing you always got to talk about when you talk about the Chicago Bulls, is can they stay healthy? If they can stay healthy, I think this team can, like I said, make a run. They have all the tools to make it to the finals. It's all about can they stay healthy. If they can't stay healthy, it's going to be a quick playoff exit for them. And if they can't stay healthy in this series, I think Milwaukee has a chance. But if they can be healthy, I see Chicago winning the series in 5. All right, so next up, you have the 4-5 matchup in the East. As you have the number 4 seed Toronto Raptors taking on number 5 seed Washington Wizards. This is a matchup between 2 teams that pretty much struggled after the All-Star break. Before the break, these were the number 2 and number 3 teams in the East. And since the All-Star break, both teams have pretty much fallen flat on their face. And if these two teams played in the West, I don't think neither one of them would have made the playoffs this year. So they're lucky they played in the East, where the competition is a lot weaker for them to even get into the playoffs. Toronto won the regular season series. Actually, Toronto swept the regular season series 3-0, and they pretty much I go first. Every game was close except for the first matchup. Toronto blew them out by 20, but Toronto swept the regular season series, even though both teams have not played each other since February 11th. So obviously a lot of things have changed since February 11th, as neither team is really playing all that well. And I think this series could be the one series in the East. Excuse me, one series in the East that can go either way. So this is the first ever postseason meeting between the Raptors and the Wizards. These teams have never faced each other in the playoffs before. But for this series, I'm gonna give the edge to Toronto because I do have the home court. I'll take Toronto in 7. Like I said, both teams are not playing well at all during this second half of the NBA season. Both teams have been struggling as of late, and I think Toronto, only because they have the home court, I think Toronto will win this series in 7 games. And for the Raptors have not won a postseason series since 2001. So I'm taking Toronto in 7 games. So I'll take a quick break, get my voice in check, because it sounds like I'm going through puberty here. And I'll be right back to break down the Western Conference. All right, so I'm back. Got my voice all up in order. I actually sound like a man. Sound like an adult. And so let's finish up, this NBA postseason. And so now let's talk about the Western Conference. And out west, we'll start with the 1-8 matchup with the Golden State Warriors, the number 1 seed Golden State Warriors, take on number 8 seed New Orleans Pelicans. And New Orleans is a great story. They made the postseason for the first time in 4 years. As far as the Golden State Warriors in the postseason for third year in a row, but they actually have the best record in the NBA. They won 67 games, won 67-15, best record of franchise history. They won their first division title since 1976. It's a lot of firsts as the Warriors are trying to win their first championship since 1975 when Rick Barry and those boys went all the way when they got the upset over the Washington Bullets in '75, swept Washington, and which is considered one of the greatest upsets in NBA Finals history, as the Bullets were the heavy favorites that year to win it all, and instead the Golden State Warriors swept them. But now back to 2015, the Golden State Warriors, they won the regular season series between the Pelicans 3-1. Golden State pretty much blew out New Orleans in every game except for the second meeting in December, and then also the last meeting. New Orleans won the last meeting last week by 3. Now, in fairness, they played the Pelicans twice in December. So obviously, these are two different teams. New Orleans is a different team now than how they were back in December. And they also played them again in March. But New Orleans have been hot as of late, just to get into the playoffs as the big defending champion. San Antonio Spurs, a game that the Spurs are actually trying to win because Spurs really wanted that 2 seed. And so this is the first ever playoff meeting between the Warriors and the Pelicans. And as far as my prediction goes, I think this is going to be a quick series. As happy as I am that New Orleans is actually in the playoffs, because I think it's good for the NBA. We keep saying how Anthony Davis is going to be, the future of the league, and how he's going to eventually be the best player in the NBA. And what a way to showcase your young up-and-coming talent by him making it to the playoffs. But right now, I don't think New Orleans as a team has enough against the Golden State Warriors. And I think New Orleans, this upcoming team, I think in the next 2 years, though, they're going to win the championship. I can just feel it. I think this team will probably win the championship within the next 2 or 3 years. They still got to get a lot more pieces around Anthony Davis. But right now, I don't think they have enough to compete with Golden State. And I see this series going exactly the way it was in the regular season. The Warriors will pretty much dominate. The Pelicans might win 1 game. And I see this series again. I'm picking the Warriors in 5. So next up, we have the Texas two-step. The 2 teams from Texas, the number 2 seed Houston Rockets versus the number 7 seed Dallas Mavericks. And this is a Dallas team. This is a Dallas team that pretty much has struggled with ever since Rajon Rondo, joined the team. And so Dallas, they're a veteran team. They still have some pieces there that won the championship just 4 years ago with Dirk, J.J. Barrera, and Tyson Chandler. You got guys like Rajon Rondo, who's won the championship before. Monte Ellis, he's been in a lot of playoff series before. So they have a veteran team that can get it done. There's also a tricky matchup, too, because Mark Cuban and Daryl Morey, whatever reason, don't get along. And you also got a lot of players switching back and forth. You got Jason Terry, used to be with the Mavericks, now with the Rockets. Chandler Parsons used to be with the Rockets, now with the Mavericks. So this is a tricky matchup, a tricky rivalry. Again, this is probably huge in Dallas. This is the third meeting between the 2 franchises. This is the third postseason meeting between the 2 franchises. Dallas won both previous 2 meetings. This will be the third. The last time these 2 teams played in the playoffs was 10 years ago. They met in the first round back in 2005, and Dallas won the series in 7 games, 4-3. Dallas won the series 4-3 in 2005. Houston won the regular season series 3-1, with Houston winning the first 2 matchups in November and January. Dallas won the matchup in February, and then Houston beat them again just 2 weeks ago. So this one, I actually think it's gonna be a closer matchup than people are giving it. I think Dallas, because of their veteran leadership on that team, I think they will compete with Houston. I think they can stick with Houston. James Harden, for whatever reason, has not played well in the playoffs. We know what happened with Oklahoma City in the finals 3 years ago. In his 2 years with Houston, he hasn't really been that consistent in the postseason. Dwight Howard coming off an injury. So could we see the Dwight Howard from 2009, or are we gonna get just the vanilla Dwight Howard? We don't know yet. So Dwight Howard is still coming back from injury. I think he's been back long enough to where he should be 100% now, but we'll see to get all the rust out of the way. So I think it's gonna be a close series. I think Houston will end up winning because I think Houston's more talented. So I think Houston will end up winning the series in 6 games. It wouldn't surprise me if it goes 7, but I got Houston winning in 6. All right, so the next matchup, which to me is probably the best matchup in the postseason, and that is the 3-6 matchup in the West. You got the 3 seed Los Angeles Clippers taking on the 6 seed San Antonio Spurs, and it's hard to believe what a difference 24 hours make. Well, 48 hours make. 2 days ago, the Spurs were the number 2 seed in the West. They lose yesterday to New Orleans, and they drop all the way from number 2 to number 6 in the West. So now they go against the Clippers. And the Clippers, this is could be a make or break season for all the talent that they have. They haven't even made it past the second round yet. And as much as people want to get on players like Carmelo Anthony and stuff like that, players like Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, they get a pass. For 2 players that really haven't achieved much, get a pass for a lot of things that we blame a lot of other players in their position for not getting it done when it matters. These Clippers teams, for whatever reason, they get a pass. And so Clippers once again finish the top 3 in the Western Conference. They get San Antonio team they have struggled against. Chris Paul for his career is 3-8 against the Spurs in the postseason. So they split the regular season series 2-2. San Antonio won the first 2 games in November and December. The Clippers won the last 2 games in January and February. Also, though, these 2 teams are different. San Antonio ended the season red hot, winning 11 of their last 12 games. The Clippers have also been pretty hot, too. I think they're 20-7 since the All-Star break. And this is the second postseason meeting between the 2 teams. The last time these 2 teams met in the playoffs was in the 2012 Western Conference semifinals, where San Antonio swept the Clippers. I don't think San Antonio's going to sweep them this time, but I do have San Antonio winning this series in 6 games. I think San Antonio winning the series in 6. I think I can see them winning at least 1 game in L.A. and sweeping all 3 games at home. And I think San Antonio wins the series in 6 games. As I think it'll be a one-and-done, quick postseason series for the L.A. Clippers. And for all the talent the Clippers have, I don't think with the way they play and with the players they have, they can win the championship. I just don't see it. So I got the defending champions advancing and moving on. No, I can't remember the last time the Spurs even lost in the first round. So I can't remember the time the Spurs didn't even have home court advantage in the first round. But I have the Spurs moving on and winning this series. I got the Spurs winning in 6. And last but not least, with the 4-5 matchup in the Western Conference, with the 4 seed Portland Trail Blazers versus the 5 seed Memphis Grizzlies. To me, I hate when the NBA does this because, I understand Portland won the division, so you got to give them the top 4 seeds. But at the same time, it's okay, Memphis has the home court advantage because Memphis has a better record. Memphis won 55-27 during the regular season. Portland won 51-31 during the regular season. But why don't you just make Memphis the 4 seed, Portland the 5 seed? Because since Portland has the home court advantage, the way I look at it, since Memphis has the home court advantage, I just look at Memphis as being the number 4 seed anyway. Portland's the 5 seed. And I think this is a format the NFL should develop too. Well, not develop, but this is a system the NFL should adopt, I should say. Because there was a lot of controversy, during the NFL playoffs, where the Carolina Panthers won the NFC South with a 7-9 record, and they got to host a playoff game against the Arizona Cardinals, who went 11-5. And if they adopt the NBA's format, where the best team with the better record, the team with the better record gets home court, therefore that game would have been played in Arizona instead of Carolina. We might have had a different result. I doubt it, only because Arizona's playing with the third string quarterback. But I think it's still a formula that the NFL should adopt. Regardless if you win your division or not, the team with the best record gets home field advantage. In the NBA's case, home court advantage. So Memphis is the 5 seed, Portland's the 4 seed. But like I said, Memphis gets home court advantage only because they have a better record than the Portland Trail Blazers. So this is the first ever postseason meeting between the Blazers and the Grizzlies. Memphis dominated Portland during the regular season. They swept all 4 games. The games really weren't all that close. The only close game they played was in January 17th. Memphis beat Portland by 4 points. But for the most part, Memphis had the way with Portland. And Portland does not go into the series at all healthy. Wesley Matthews is out with a torn Achilles. Aaron Aflalo is expected to miss at least the first 2 or 3 games of this series with a shoulder injury. So it's going to be difficult for Portland. I think it really is. And I think Portland, they have enough talent with LaMarcus Aldridge, Damian Lillard to win a couple games. But I think at the end of the day, Memphis will be too much for them. And I got Memphis winning this series in 5. I think Memphis they'll get it done in 5 games, and they'll move on. So that is my prediction for the first round of the NBA playoffs. So a little recap here. In the East, I got Atlanta beating Brooklyn in 5. I have Toronto beating Washington in 7. I have Cleveland beating Boston in 5. And I have Chicago beating Milwaukee in 5. In the West, I have Golden State beating New Orleans in 5. I have Memphis beating Portland in 5. I have Houston beating Dallas in 6. And I have San Antonio beating LA in 6. So out of all the teams, I think I only got San Antonio as the only lower seeded team to advance in the playoffs. I think in the Eastern Conference, the top 4 seeds are all advanced. I don't really see any of the bottom 5 even challenging them. Even I think Washington will give Toronto a series, or because both teams are in the same boat, they really haven't played all that well all year. As far as Golden State is concerned, as far as the Western Conference is concerned, I really don't see. I think the Western Conference will be a lot more exciting to watch than the Eastern Conference. As a matter of fact, the Western Conference, I think it can go either way, 1 through 7. It can go either way. I think the only team in the West that actually has pretty much an easy series is Golden State. And even though I'm picking Memphis to beat Portland in 5, it really wouldn't surprise me at all if Portland were to win that series. The same thing with Houston and Dallas. Even though I think Houston's going to win the series, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Dallas wins this matchup. So since it's a huge rivalry in the state of Texas. And then LA, San Antonio, again, I think San Antonio's a better team. I think they'll eventually win it. But it wouldn't surprise me if that series goes either way as well. So I think the only team in the West that actually is somewhat of an easy matchup is Golden State. Because I just think that right now New Orleans isn't ready to compete in the playoffs. But I think New Orleans is an up-and-coming team. They're a young team, and their time is coming. It's just not coming right now. So I got Golden State advancing in the playoffs. I got Golden State with the easiest matchup. I think Golden State will beat New Orleans in at least 5 games. So that is my playoff preview. As the playoffs will go along, I'll continue giving my my predictions and who I think will win. So I'll go round by round. So this is my prediction for the first round. When the first round's over, we can go off on what I got right, what I got wrong. Also at the same time. And then once the first round's over, I can go over who I got right, who I got wrong, and I'll make my predictions for the second round, and so on and so forth. And while we're at it, what the hell? I know the NHL Playoffs started yesterday, but I might as well give my NHL predictions while I'm at it. So for the Stanley Cup playoffs, 2015 Stanley Cup playoffs, with the New York Rangers, they finished winning as the President's Trophy winners, which means they had the best record during the regular season. The Detroit Red Wings, they made the playoffs for the 24th consecutive year in a row, which is the longest current streak in NHL history, and actually the fourth longest current streak in NHL history. Excuse me, I tell you that it's the fourth largest current streak in NFL history, and it's currently the longest streak in the NHL right now. Also, too, you had the Winnipeg Jets. They made the postseason for the first time since they were the Atlanta Trashers. And you also had last time they made the playoffs was in 2007 when they were in Atlanta. This is the first time they made the playoffs since they moved to Winnipeg in 2011. This is also the first time Winnipeg has actually hosted a playoff series since 1996, before the original Winnipeg Jets moved to Arizona to become the Coyotes. Also, too, the Ottawa Senators became the first team in NHL to overcome a 14-point deficit in the standings to make the playoffs. So the Ottawa Senators, made a huge comeback to make the playoffs. And also, too, 5 Canadian teams made the playoffs. That is the most since 2004. Also, too, the Los Angeles Kings became the first team since 2007 to fail to make the playoffs after winning the Stanley Cup since the Carolina Hurricanes. Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup in 2006, missed the playoffs in 2007, and the Kings became the first team to do that in 8 years. They won the Cup last year, did not make the playoffs this year. And the Boston Bruins failed to make the playoffs for the first time since 2007, as they became the first President's Trophy winner to miss the postseason since 2008, when the Buffalo Sabres won the President's Trophy in 2007, but missed the postseason in 2008. And my team, the San Jose Sharks, failed to make the playoffs for the first time since 2003, ending the NHL's second longest active streak for a playoff streak behind the Detroit Red Wings. So as we know, the NHL, they changed their postseason up a year ago. So what they did was the top 3 teams from each division, instead of doing East and West, having the top 8 teams in the East and West make it, what they did now is the top 3 teams from each division will make the playoffs, and then you have 2 wild card teams. So in the Eastern Conference, in the Atlantic Division, you have Montreal, Tampa, and Detroit make the playoffs. For the Metropolitan Division, you have the New York Rangers, Washington Capitals, and New York Islanders make the playoffs. And then the 2 wild cards in the East, you have Ottawa and Pittsburgh. And then out in the West, from the Central Division, you have St. Louis, Nashville, and Chicago. In the Pacific, you have Anaheim, Vancouver, and Calgary. And the 2 wild card teams out West are Minnesota and Winnipeg. So here's my predictions for the NHL playoffs right now. As I think some of the games going on right now. All right, so we'll start with the East, and that is Montreal versus Ottawa. Right now, Montreal holds a 1-0 series lead against Ottawa after beating the Senators yesterday, 4-3. And I'm taking. I know there's a big rivalry in Canada, as I remember when these 2 teams played in the playoffs. I think 2 years ago, they had that big brawl, and there was some beefing going on yesterday when the the Canadians, PK Subban, clipped one of the Ottawa Senator players and fractured his wrist. So, like I said, Montreal right now is up 1-0. I think Montreal, who went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, I'm picking them to go back to the East Finals again this year. So I got them winning the series in 6 games. Then you have Tampa Bay versus Detroit. in the other Atlantic Division matchup. And this one, I think Tampa Bay, they are a good team. They've been on a roll this season. So I want to take them to beat Detroit in 7. I give Tampa Bay the edge because they have the home ice advantage. As a matter of fact, I think they played tonight. I'm trying to see let's see. Well, yeah, so Detroit won the first game, so they took home ice advantage, excuse me. So they won 3-2. So I still think Tampa will win in 7, but Detroit's still the home ice. All right, so moving on to the Metropolitan side of the bracket. Yeah, the New York Rangers taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Rangers won today 2-1. They lead the series 1-0. Pittsburgh's been struggling all season long. I think New York will win this series in 5 games, and they'll move on. Then you have the Washington Capitals versus the New York Islanders. The Islanders won Game 1 4-1. They lead the series 1-0. I'm picking the Islanders to win it. I'm thinking the Islanders will win this series in 6. I got New York winning this series in 6 games. And now moving on to the West, on the Western Conference, you have the St. Louis Blues versus the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota actually won today, 4-2. I know St. Louis has been red hot. I think they had the best record in the Western Conference. Might be mistaken. Actually, no, it was Anaheim. So, yeah, it was Anaheim. Actually, Anaheim and St. Louis tied. But either way, even though St. Louis has the best record, I'm still taking Minnesota. I think Minnesota's been an up-and-coming team for a long time. I had them advancing. I have them winning this series 4-2, and I have them moving on. And, of course, my pick to win it all, the Chicago Blackhawks, they beat the Predators last night 4-3 in double overtime. I'm taking Chicago to win this series in 6 games as well, and I'm taking Chicago to win this one. And then the Pacific Division bracket, you have Anaheim taking on Winnipeg. Right now, Winnipeg's actually on top of Anaheim at the end of the second period, 2-1. But I think overall, Anaheim's probably been. See, Anaheim's kind of like the Atlanta Braves, when they make the playoffs every year, but they really don't do anything once they get into the playoffs. I think last year they had the best record in the West and got knocked out in the first round. But Winnipeg, an up-and-coming team. I think Anaheim will win it in 7, but I think it'll be close. And of course, the Battle of Canada. You have Vancouver Canucks versus Calgary Flames. Calgary beat Vancouver last night 2-1. Calgary leads the series 1-0. I'm taking Calgary to win this series in 7 games. So just like I said with the NBA, I'll go round to round. So once we hit the second round, I'll make my predictions for the second round of the postseason, and we'll go see. We'll look back to see what I got right, what I got wrong. But for right now, those are my predictions for the NHL. So in the West, in the East, I'm taking Montreal to beat Ottawa in 6. I'm taking Tampa to beat Detroit in 7. I'm taking the Rangers to beat the Penguins in 5. And I'm taking the Islanders to beat the Capitals in 6. In the West, I got Minnesota beating St. Louis in 6. Chicago to beat Nashville in 6. Anaheim to beat Winnipeg in 7. Calgary to beat Vancouver in 7. So those are my predictions for both the NHL and the NBA playoffs. So I'll be back next week with a brand new show for you guys. In the meantime, enjoy the week. Have a nice weekend. Enjoy the sports. This is my favorite time of the year because you got the NBA playoffs going on, the NHL playoffs going on. So it's a huge year for sports. This is a huge time of the year for sports. some of these next 2 months with the NHL playoffs going on and the NBA playoffs going on are going to be the most fascinating 2 months in sports. And of course, once everything dies, then after that, everything starts dying. Plus, none of that, we got the draft coming up in 2 weeks as well to get excited about. So this is a huge, huge time period as far as sports. You got the NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, and you got the NFL draft coming up. So we got all that coming up. In the meantime, like I said, I'll be back next week for the whole new show. Enjoy the week, enjoy the sports, and I'm out.